Welcome to Penang, Malaysia. I am on the island of Penang, and I want to talk about retiring early, not waiting until your 60s or God forbid in your 70s. One of the ways to do that is to dramatically reduce your cost of living. One of the ways to do that is to go to Southeast Asia, travel around and spend, in the case of Malaysia, between 25 and 30% less on your monthly outlays. It is remarkable how that can change your entire mindset. Imagine if somebody in the United States said, I'm going to triple your net worth, and you'd probably be walking on air for the rest of your life. Well, the other alternative to tripling your net worth is to reduce your expenses by 1/3, which is what I'm doing during retirement. I retired at 58. And I sold everything, and I'm exploring Southeast Asia as well as parts of Europe and other parts of the world that are much lower cost of living. Penang has many things going for it. The first thing is cost of living. I'm staying at a place here, Tropicana Bay Resort. It's a mid-level kind of condo situation. Of course, it has a very nice gym. It's got several massive swimming pools, and it has a tennis court. So that's costing me through Airbnb $1,000 a month. And that might be a lot to some people. It might be cheap to some others, but that's what it is. On a long-term lease, you could get that for between $750 and $800 a month for a 12-month lease. Remarkable, right? And it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath condo. It's one of those up there. Now, one of the reasons condo living in Penang is so cheap because they overbuilt, right? So this is part of the Penang Global City, PGC, and these buildings are 50% occupied, which means they're 50% unoccupied. So if you're a real estate person, then great, but you probably have a property that you can't maximize. So that's just one of the things to think about. As a renter, you're good to go. So I've been renting here for a couple of months, and it's a nice. I'll do another video on the unit. It's got a gym down here. I'm not going to video the gym. Maybe I'll do it later, but nice place. What I'm going to do is give you another 14 reasons why Penang could be the place for your retirement. Healthcare is a big one too. So I'm going to try to find some shade here. Healthcare is great. Many English-speaking doctors and facilities, and costs are, again, 25%. I just got private insurance for if I get cancer or something stupid like that, or a major heart problem. But in general, I just pay out of pocket for practically everything, and that's what I do. So healthcare is another one. And again, English. So if you're a native English speaker, or if you speak English, you're going to love it in Penang. Everybody here has at least some modicum of English. A lot of folks have very good English. So if you don't want to learn a foreign language while living in a very nice place, then Malaysia, in this case Penang, could be your answer. It's very affordable, and it's also very beautiful. So there's basically the north of the island and the south of the island. And we'll go from the south. The south is the airport and the industrialized zone. That's where they make all the silicon chips and the medical devices and pharmaceuticals and all technology, and they export it out duty-free. So a lot of the people in this condo in particular are sort of regular middle-class people, either working in offices or working in factories or working in the service industry. And it's about 50-50 split between service industry and manufacturing in Penang. Now this Penang Global City, it's way behind schedule. It started 12 years ago, and this place I'm living is the first building that they did. So it's 12 years old, and I'm going to walk around a little bit later on in this video and show you why that's a big problem, where when you live in a development that's been stalled through financial mismanagement and other holdups in the schedule, it means the people that are here kind of get a rough deal, and I'm going to explain how I witnessed that. So having said that, Penang is not a walkable town. No, so as you go north, where I am, it's all about cars. Everybody's got a car. Bus service is not reliable. It's not on time. There is no light rail system, although one just started a few months ago. It's going to take 10 years to finish it out. They want to cover the island in a light rail to kind of handle the rush hour traffic problems they have. So a little bit early to come to Penang if you want all the bells and whistles. They're selling condos, they're building condos on that light rail line right now. So if you've got the time and you're into that, then you can think about where would you want to locate. And if you go to any kind of shopping mall, you'll see all the beautiful, pristine models and all the showrooms of all these wonderful high-rises that you can get. High-rises are good for a couple of reasons. One is it makes the cost to build per unit very affordable. They can put in some nice infrastructure, nice amenities, and they can share the cost amongst all the tenants. This place I'm living at right now is about 1,200 units split over 4 towers. So as an American coming from a lush, leafy suburb with a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath house, do I like this? Would I stay here long term? I would not. I'd have to find a lower density, maybe lower to the ground, maybe a kind of a bungalow, kind of on the ground situation, which there are plenty of too. But this one is a bit of an experiment to see how it feels. A lot of the people here are young couples, maybe young couples with babies, maybe seniors and singles and students also. Maybe 3 or 4 students to one of the larger units makes it very cost effective. So I'm kind of a fish out of water. Very, very few Anglos here in this part of the island. Again, this is about 10 minutes north of that industrial area and about 15 minutes north of the airport. As you go further north, you get to the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Georgetown, which is a wonderful place. It's where you need to go and spend time and get to know the culture of Penang and the history and really enjoy Penang for what it's most famous for in terms of that Georgetown historical area. It's a very large area. I could stay there. I could find a place to stay there if it was very comfortable and modern, and then walk around in Georgetown. That would make me happy. That might be in the future. As you go further north, there's a kind of a high-end, more opulent place called Gurney, G-U-R-N-E-Y. You've got a little bit of a higher budget, and you can stay in one of those more opulent places. And then as you go way to the north, there's more of a beach and holidaymaker type place called Batu Ferengi. And that's where you go if you want to hang out on the beach, you want to just kind of relax and get away from the hustle and bustle. But still close because it's an island to the action. So there's a lot going on. I like an island vibe. I like to feel that it's one island and you can get from A to B in half an hour, maximum 45 minutes. I like that kind of feeling. And it's also a very politically stable place. There's a mix, obviously, in Malaysia, right? You got a mix of Chinese, Malay, and Indian, and then all the rest. But it's very much like a poor man's Singapore. So I spent 10 days in Singapore at about 85 to 90% cost of living compared to the United States, ex healthcare. So that's not really on my long-term radar for long-term retirement because, you know, it's too expensive. It's on the border of being too expensive. I want to save my money for 2 reasons. One is I want to do extensive travel, and that costs money. And secondly, I want to live well. I don't want to scrimp and save. Actually, I'll tell you the third one. Third one is if you do that in a low cost of living country or countries, your investments continue to grow. And just let that sink in a minute. You're not necessarily aggressively using up your retirement fund. You can quite easily, depending on how the stock market is doing and your investments are doing, quite easily live off the froth. They used to say live off the interest, but I say live off the froth because it could be completely different next year and I could be, you know, down 20% maybe and have to deal with that. But right now we're living off the froth and that gives you a very good feeling. Remember I said at the beginning, if your accountant said, well, I've just tripled your net worth, Mr. Hampton, I'd be walking on air. Well, reduced by 2/3 my living expenses without sacrificing my quality of life. So I'm also walking on air. It's a food paradise. Now I'm on a health kick, so it's kind of a stupid place to come in the world, because Penang is known as a food paradise, and it certainly is. I'm going to try to stick to one meal a day and jump into that food paradise only once a day. But it is wonderful. All kinds of exotic foods. Tastes in your mouth that I can guarantee you've never had before, combinations of tastes between the 3 different main cultures, as well as any kind of Western food you want. You can get it. And it's, like I said, 1/3 to 25% of the cost of eating out in the United States, and perhaps in the UK as well. I can take it from me. I spent the month of July in the United States, in Massachusetts, and I was hemorrhaging money from a grossly overpriced Marriott Residence Inn, which was 50 years old, piece of crap, but they can get away with it, as you know, charging $150 a night. What a joke. And eating out is an absolute joke. I got a very bad fish and chips in Salem, Massachusetts, and it was tiny, and it was like $30. Unbelievable. So the airport here is very good. International airport Penang is very good. You can get to other parts of Southeast Asia. You get to KL, and you can go anywhere in the world. So that's very handy. It's literally 15-20 minute grab ride. And let me tell you about grab rides. Grab ride is the Singapore-based alternative to Uber, and I can get, it's about 50 cents a kilometer. I think I worked it out. 50 cents a kilometer. So you go 10 kilometers, it's $5. You go 2 kilometers, it's $1. And it's really easy to get around. This is not a walkable part of town, and I'm going to show you that later on. It's the opposite of walkable. So that's the one big fly in the ointment, because I always said I want a walkable neighborhood. This part of Penang is not walkable, but whatever. Very friendly people. Everybody I've been interacting here are very friendly. The ethnic mix is different here. It's more Chinese and less Malay and a little bit less Indian, and then quite a number of expats. I think there's between 10 and 20 English-speaking expats that actually live here in Penang. So it's very accommodating. I think this particular part is not so accommodating. I've seen almost no Anglo-looking people here, because the people that live in these places are working nearby, and they have a car, and they're just regular schmoes, right? This is their bedroom community. This is what they're doing, and I'll explain a little bit that more in a minute. This culture, I told you about Georgetown, UNESCO. I'm not that into that culture. Once you've seen it once or twice, it's like, okay, well, it's still there, so I know about it. It's not like you're going to go back every day. They have culture scenes, nothing like Kuala Lumpur, nothing like Bangkok, obviously, but it is there. And the good thing is about Georgetown, you can hop to other parts of Southeast Asia very, very easily. In fact, we're going to Ipoh tomorrow. We're getting a train, an hour-and-a-half train from the town on the mainland called Butterworth, which is across the bridge here. You go from the island of Penang to the land side part of Penang, still Penang, but part of it's on the mainland. And the big town there is called Butterworth. And there's a train station there. You can get a $10 train return ticket up to Ipoh, which is a nice part of Malaysia. I'm going to check that out for the first time tomorrow. So that'll be fun. And a lot of familiar foods here. If you like your full English, if you like your, your Sunday roast, or whatever you're looking for, you can get it here, no problem. Again, at a discount. And you can stay long here. You can stay 90 days on using the entry, the electronic landing card for Malaysia. It's automatically 90 days. Very convenient, very easy. And you can go out and come back. I've done some research. You can spend 6 months a year in Malaysia without drawing the ire of the immigration authorities. So we'll probably be bumping up against that in the next couple of years quite easily. Malaysia's in the rotation. Stability, low cost of living, English speaking. The road signs are in English, especially here in Penang, and friendly people. So what's not to like? Well, I've got a couple of things I'll share with you in a minute. So the whole point is not to say how great Penang is. Everybody move to Penang. The point is, what are you going to do about when you're 55 or in your 50s and you think, am I going to work another 10 years till I'm 65 or God forbid 67? How am I going to bridge the gap for my health insurance if I quit my job? How am I going to bridge the gap to Social Security? And do I really have to keep working to try and build up an even bigger nest egg in order to make sure I don't run out of money in retirement, or I don't have some kind of problem that I can't afford it? Because once you retire, it's done. You ain't going back. There's no way you're going to take a year off and then expect to go back in as a 50-something or a 60-something. It ain't going to happen. You're not going to find that highly paid job that you've worked all your life to achieve, that you know exactly how to do it, and you do it well, and you get paid well. It ain't coming back. It's a one-way door. But I'm telling you, the one-way door can be for you to reduce your cost of living by 2/3 or more by spending most of your year in low cost of living countries. This one in particular is soft landing. Soft landing. Everything here is good, and you don't need to learn a new language, or really, it's not that different of a culture from the United States. It really isn't. And Kuala Lumpur especially, I'll do another video about Kuala Lumpur, but Penang even is very, very nice. And so here's my, so let's go downstairs, and I'll tell you some of the things that when you get to street level, they're not as great. And I'm just being very honest, so I wouldn't stay here again, but I would stay in Penang again, absolutely, maybe in a slightly different location. Come with me. I'm not saying this place isn't nice. It's very nice. It's 12 years old, like I said, and I wouldn't stay here again. But a lot of people do for the reasons I talked about. They work close by. Now, let's make our way downstairs. This is the top level. I quite like this. I quite like feeling like I'm above a highway and above some foliage. And I kind of get that you're sort of in the canopy here. To me, that's kind of cool. And you see all this growth around the upper pool. It's mature. It's all bedded in. You know, I don't take that for granted. And then we'll make our way down to the ground floor where things get more interesting. So this pool is usually empty during the day because it's just too damn hot. But we're going to do see that there are people in the pool because it's overcast. So look at this. I mean, that's nice, right? We're on the fourth floor. There is no fourth floor here because it's an unlucky number. So this is floor 3A. But you see where I'm coming from. You've got your little paths here. You've got your trees. And you've got your growths. You've got your foliage. And if you lived in one of these units right here, you know, you'd be home now. And because this place is approximately 50% occupied, it never gets crowded, never gets really crowded at all. In fact, it's like you have the place to yourself. So I'll just show you what I'm looking at. So this is lovely. And it's quite well maintained, I have to tell you. I think what happens is they build these units, they put in all the grass, the landscaping, all the foliage, and it's naturally watered, right? Because it's a warm, sunny, wet country. So the landscaping kind of takes care of itself. They have a team of landscapers, and they obviously do a tremendous job just by what we're looking at around here. I'm going to go inside, get on the lift, and go down to the bottom floor, the entrance. I have a theory about this place, which is it was built to a grand scale, right, to accommodate a lot of worker bees. I'm not putting down worker bees. I was a worker bee my whole life. So it was put here to house worker bees, to work in the factories, work in the shops, in the banks, and in the tourism industry, and all the other things that are going on here in Penang. It's also near the southern bridge, so they could easily get to the mainland if they had to get their job on the mainland. This is how you know that you're in a condo, because Condo Association will put up all the notices of tell you all the things you can and cannot do and what the consequences are. And here are some COVID era stickers about not using your key to press the lift buttons, because the key breaks the lift button. So makes sense to me. So this is this is a unit. This is the lobby of the unit that I'm living in. And to me, it looks like it was just built to a spec, a good spec, nice spec, with maintenance in mind. Very easy to maintain, very standardized materials. And you know, they didn't bother with getting an interior decorator once they were done. There's no finishing touches. There's no beautiful things. So, giant car park, 3-story car park. It's never more than, I'd say, 25% full. And the reason I wouldn't stay here again is that, first of all, there's no amenities. So you kind of, in my world, if you're going to create a vertical village, you should be putting in some groceries, some personal care, maybe some food trucks will come by several times a week and hang out here. There's nothing like that. It's completely devoid of any value-added services. So that to me is indicative of the fact that there's not a business case for it because there's not enough people living here. And this is all built on reclaimed land, and it, as I said, built 12 years ago as part of the Penang global city. And it's really just a housing dormitory for all the workers. Again, nothing wrong with that. It's the car park behind me. And so if you lived here, you'd have to have a car or a motorcycle, because you can't get to the mall here because it's too dangerous to cross the road. Because between here and the mall, there's no crosswalk. I'm going to shortcut that to you. It's about 800 meters. I'm not going to make you wade through the 800 meters. I'm just going to point out a few key things about why pedestrians are the lowest rung on the totem pole. So here we are, outside my unit. Outside the front, very good. They're very good about security here. And what I think that's just like a cultural norm. Every single one of these units, this is the next door one, has a guarded entrance. And it's not because there's a lot of crime and they're trying to keep out the bad guys necessarily. It's just because it's what people think they're paying for. They think they're paying for a security guard detail, and they're paying for the tracking of ins and outs to the complex, which I have no problem with. So it's a gated community of a different kind where you don't have to be rich to have a gated community. It's kind of a done thing. So this area in front of us is basically the next area of development. So at some point behind that green wall over there, they're going to continue building more skyscrapers. And this used to be the ocean front, right? This would have been the ocean front, and you would have got unobstructed views of the water. But once they put those additional blocks up, it ain't gonna happen. So the mall is up here, and look at this. Look at this. This is Malaysian infrastructure for you. Obviously, they have to have a water management system, but this is completely uncovered, unprotected, and little Johnny and little Joey and Grandpa Pop on his motorized vehicle, they're not coming down here on this quote-unquote sidewalk to go to the shops. They're just not going to do it because it's too goddamn dangerous. Fall down there, first of all, you'll break your neck. Secondly, no one's going to know you're down there. So you're screwed either way. So I'm keeping well to the left. Secondly, you think this is a sidewalk? It's not. It's actually, this is just a covered canal. And luckily this one does not stink. Some of them stink. This one's okay. So don't step on these little metal grates. They've been there at least 12 years. God knows how solid or not solid they are. So I don't step on those. So this is the next door unit. So you can see, same setup. Got the guard, and you got the guardhouse, and you got the pedestrian entrance and the car entrance. And once again, there's no value-added services. It's It's really just a giant dormitory. When you go inside them, they have a lot of space that they had intended to put like shops and hair salons and maybe a creche, daycare or something like that. None of that exists. Either because, well, I think because there's just not enough people in there to make it worth their while. So we're going to take a quick walk to go as far as I can without getting run over. Now, not to be critical, but there's something about Southeast Asia where they put these rocks inside these wire cages and they think that's nice. I don't get it. There you go. Further indication that pedestrians are not a priority. So as you can see, on this reclaimed land, what do they do on their reclaimed land? Well, they build high-rises because it costs a lot of money to make land, dredge the ocean and then pull it up and make it into usable land. So if they're going to build on reclaimed land, guess what they're going to build? They're going to build high-rises, which makes perfect economic sense if you want to put as many people on Penang as you can. Similar to Singapore, actually. Singapore and Malaysia are both, well, Singapore and Penang are both adding land area to their country or their state, city-state, whatever you want to call it. So here's another example of, little Johnny is not going to do this, and neither is Blind Joe either. So this is just how you got to get used to it. It's got to wing it. And the car's not going to wait for me, it's vice versa. That's just the way it is. So similar format here. So here's another scary ass culvert. Do you call it a culvert? I don't know, but it's uncovered. And once again, if your cat goes missing or your dog goes missing, they might be in one of these culverts. So that's where I would start looking. If any one of your smaller members of your household went missing, you'd probably have a look down here first. So getting closer. So there is a bus stop here. If you're willing to do that much walking, you can get a bus. I hear the buses are reasonably unreliable in terms of schedule, but I heard that from a Grab driver, so consider the source. All right, so we've reached the first part. Again, if you live there and you're not driving, then this is where you're coming, this is where you're walking, and you're gonna make sure you don't break an ankle on these. And this is funny culture here. I see this a lot in Asia. Where you find one pharmacy, you'll find another pharmacy right next door. So you think, well, aren't they gonna compete with each other? I don't know. I see that a lot. So we come here a few times. Pharmacy's pretty good. Get your coffee, and there's a few dining options here, which I quite like. And you can get a drink here. You can. There's a couple of restaurants, and so that's all good. So far we're doing okay. Here's the two side by side. You've got 7-Eleven and a Happy Mart, literally next to each other. Somebody explained that to me. And then if you live across there, be even more handy, you think, right? Be more handy, but how are you going to get across the street? You're not going to cross the street unless you have a certain amount of testicular fortitude, especially if you're older. I mean, if you stumble on that road, it's going to be 50-50. So anyway, this is I would say the local quote-unquote high street for those condos back there that I just came from. So you got a pretty decent selection. And we'll just get up to the climax of this video. This is the climax. This is what we've all been waiting for. So you come up here, and if you're of a coffee persuasion, you'll get a coffee. if you're had a hard day at work and you want to have a few cocktails, this is where you're going to go. I've been in here a few times. I quite like it. Very, very friendly. They've got a pool table, and yeah. So this is where you would go. This is where I would go. This is where I would go and get a beer. I would get a beer here first, and the reason for that is because if I wanted to go to the mall, which is another 500 meters, any sensible person would say, great, let's go to the mall. Two giant food courts, tons of restaurants, and every single shop you could have. But I'm not crossing this. I'm not doing it. I've done it twice. And it's similar but different to Vietnam, where there is no pedestrian sidewalk. There's no expectation that any pedestrian is going to remotely approach this roundabout. And they shouldn't, and I wouldn't. I've done it twice with my wife. We scurried across here. Here's some ladies scurrying over here. And you basically have to become experienced and be young and get over it. But I'm not doing it anymore. There's another guy. See, they're coming down here at high speed, and the guy's got his head on a swivel. Would you do that several times a day or twice a day? I wouldn't. So there you have it. I can't get to the mall. So I'm going to save some money because I can't get to the mall. And just to summarize, living in Penang or any part of Malaysia, it's like anywhere else. It's all about location. The cost of living is fantastic. The quality of the accommodations and the facilities are high. And the infrastructure is pretty good. And I've given you all the other 14 reasons. So you just got to pick your location. You got to get your feet on the ground and become familiar with. So there you have it. It's all about location. And I know there are many locations here in Malaysia, and especially in Penang, where I would be very happy to have a bolt hole. I'm not recommending retiring or buying property in Penang necessarily. I'm just saying if you are looking for a low cost of living country that speaks English and is Western friendly and is quite familiar to people from Western countries and not a huge leap into the unknown, then I suggest checking out Penang and getting your feet on the ground and let me know what you think. So that's all for now. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.